So I failed hard. I've missed 3 days so far, and I'm only on like day 6. So I'm batting 500. But what? You like when I fail?
It's amusing.
So today, what I wanted to do, since I have to put out a piece of content, we're gonna review a movie.
Woo!
And we just went and saw The Wind. It's a major motion picture by. It's a motion picture. It's produced by a company, clearly a low budget film. First, I want to preface it by saying this. I'm not gonna rag on the actors because the actors did the best job they could. It's my belief that in any movie, in most movies, actors do the best job they can with the material that they're given. The only time I harp or rag on somebody's acting is when they're not an actor and they've been thrown into a position like that. I think at that point you can criticize their acting, but I'm not going to criticize other actors and other performers acting because, like I said, they did the best they were with what they were given. I don't want to talk too much about the director because I don't know anything about the director.
I know nothing about the director.
The direction actually seemed fine. Like I said, the acting was fine, especially with what the actors were given.
The sets and the cinematography, it wasn't bad.
Yeah, there were some really good ideas with the cinematography. The set pieces were real good. It's a one location set. It takes place in in I guess 2 separate cabins. Even cabins? Would you call them cabins?
Yeah, cabins.
It takes place
It's in the pioneer days of America, and so where people are spread out. You know, your neighbor lives a mile away from you, and everyone lives in cabins. It's very built from the ground up sort of a situation. Everything you have is what you have. There's no stores nearby to get anything. So, the sets and the locations are very simplistic. There's not a lot to look at visually, but at the same time, there were some good shots that happened because of it. And, the costuming, for the most part, was accurate. So I enjoyed that as somebody who was kind of obsessed with pioneer stuff when I was a lot younger, just because of Little House on the Prairie books. So
yeah, it's a period piece and everything. It's a period piece. I guess everything is in it is more or less accurate. There's nothing in there that's entirely accurate, or there was no part of the film that tore me out of the time period.
Yeah.
From start to beginning, clothing, amenities, everything was time appropriate for pioneer times, except
the husband of the main character.
Oh yeah.
What was his name?
Isaac.
Isaac. The one thing I will say is he looked almost a little too modern, because his hair was a little closely cropped and he didn't have a beard, which in the time period he most likely would have a beard or some sort of scruff because, like I said earlier, people live miles apart from each other. You really don't see anyone. The only time someone would shave is either they're getting married or some sort of church event or something like that. But he was just kind of a little too clean shaven the entire way through. And this movie took place between, there had to be a 2-year period between her pregnancy and the scenario that took place.
It takes place over at least a year.
A year or 2. And so you would think in that time his hair or his facial hair would change or his costume would change. His clothes were exactly the same throughout the entire thing. So, which threw me off a lot of times of what point in time are we looking at in the film, which I think was the biggest complaint we had.
And she brings up a very good point, which brings me to my main gripe, and I think her main gripe too, is the pacing of the film. So my theory is that this was a film that was originally written as a short film. I'd have to do more research on this, but I would guess that this script was either written as a short film, and they produced it and decided to turn it into a full-length film, or this film was written as one film, and they edited the film linearly, and there were still some pacing issues. So what they did is they chopped it up and made a bunch of time jumps. So the film is very jarring. The very first scene is, um, for lack of a better term, a dead baby.
Yeah, which there's a lot of that going on, and I feel like
And
it
then
wasn't properly addressed.
right, and then the very next scene is a body in a coffin, and then they lay the baby next to the body, and then the very next scene is the woman who was in the coffin, but she's not pregnant. And so there's just all these time jumps, and it's very confusing, it's very jarring. And so my guess is that this film, the part of the film that is the now, or like the end of the film, right? The part of the film that is current, that is taking place in the current era, that's not taking place in the past. That was probably the film. Like if you chopped out all the time jumps, that's probably the film that was written, and then they had to fill in with exposition, and that's why it became so choppy. Because I don't want to put any spoilers in this, but the last half hour, maybe the last 45 minutes, there are hardly any time jumps. And in that last half hour to 45 minutes is probably the best part of the movie.
Yeah, no, agreed.
Yeah, there's just a lot of pacing issues, a lot of time issues.
Yeah, I'll say that in the first few scenes, like he said, there's this woman who died and her baby who died, and her husband is heading back to town to get people to help him move his home into a wagon so he can go back to where they originally came from. And then the next scene is the husband who left with the neighbor, and it's the husband coming back to the home and saying, "We got new neighbors." And so I thought maybe at the beginning of the film it was following just a standard linear story, and then when the neighbors came over to have dinner, I was like, they look exactly like the people who just left. And I don't know, maybe I'm just a little dense, but it took me a while to realize that the couple who, at the beginning of the film, who died / moved away, were the couple who just came and moved in. And it took me a few minutes to realize that, and I feel like that is a really good example of what the problem is with this movie, is that it jumps so much, and the characters' appearances don't change. The woman's hair, her length, the length of her hair doesn't change. The man, he doesn't have facial hair or no facial hair. His costume almost never changes, if at all. And it makes it really hard to guess where the story exactly is in the linear form until you get about halfway through the movie, where you kind of figure out the rhythm. But at the beginning, it's so jarring that it's a little hard to get into the movie because you're just trying to figure out where and when the hell you are in the story.
I felt myself more concerned with being comfortable in my chair than what was happening in the movie.
Yeah, well,
I'm sorry. I'm not the kind of person who likes to go, that was a bad movie, because ultimately they made a movie and I never have. So.
Yeah, and it like I said before, there were some good shots. The acting was good. I mean, the lead actress, she was good. I just feel that some of her scenes were undercut because of the editing that was going on. Because there's a scene where she's really at that point where, in a horror film where the character starts breaking, like a horror...
Hi, Zoe. Hi, Joey.
We're in like a horror, what is it? Psycho, mental thriller film where the character starts losing, their mind or their patience, or, they're just getting really frustrated with whatever it is they're dealing with, and they kind of have their mental breakdown. And when she had that mental breakdown, I didn't really feel anything for her. And it wasn't her performance. It was because of the editing and the time jumps that I didn't have time to register with the character, her hopelessness, and what would lead her to the actions she took in that moment. And which was a real shame because, again, the actress did really well. I'm not familiar with her at all. I'm sure if I Googled her, I might see something.
It was clearly a budget thing.
Yeah.
The story would have been helped out with some bigger differences in the way the characters looked from the time jumps. Um, Ultimately, the movie has some issues, but like I said, the last half hour to 45 minutes is good and it's solid. And there's about a good 10 to 15 minute sequence at the end that is great. And then the last 5 minutes kind of peters out. I don't want to spoil anything for you, because ultimately, if you were a fan of The Witch, you might like this film.
Yeah.
I liked The Witch quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie isn't as good as that movie, but you can see it takes quite a few cues from it, and it's kind of made within the same vein. The goat.
I saw the goat, and I was like, "It is
the Witch." So I would say I'd say wait for Redbox.
Yeah, Redbox, Plex, whatever.
Plex. Unless there's a movie theater you really like supporting, go see it there. But go see it at Redbox. Our Plex is pirated, so they wouldn't have our Plex.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, these are the kind of movies you should be supporting, especially if you don't like multi-universe movies like the DC universe, the Marvel universe. Like, I love the Marvel universe, and I plan on seeing all those movies. But if you like movies that aren't made with the specific intent of creating a universe around it, go see movies like this. Because it's not a bad movie.
No.
It's just got its issues.
Yeah.
But it's good. It's still good. I'd say, at the very least, see it on Redbox. But if you're a fan of cinema in general, and a fan of thriller films, and a fan of horror films, go see it.
Yeah, by all means, see it. It's got some really great moments in it.
Yeah.
Great shots.
Yeah.
And
especially
there were a couple
especially the outside stuff. Like I think everything inside the cabins are probably done on a sound stage.
Yeah.
But then when a lot of the outside stuff, with the hills in the background and the big sweeping stuff, you can tell those were location shots, and they only had a day or two to get all of them in. But they still look nice.
I will say there
There's
were a lot of moments that actually made me jump in my chair, and I do really appreciate that, because that is a good scary movie. Where if my hands go up like this and the stereotypical scaredy cat motion, I really enjoyed those moments. So yeah.
Go see it. At least on Redbox.
Yeah.
So bye. Say bye, Zoe.